And please hear me. I am not in any way denigrating, nor am I saying to those who are protesting and who are out in the streets and even rioting that they are wrong. I'm not going to be one of those who will say they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do that. That they shouldn't destroy property. There are those who will tell you, and Christian leaders who say, yeah, but we shouldn't do that. The reality is that, and you've heard Dr. King say that riot is the language of the unheard. And that sometimes property is damaged. I don't know if all the tables Jesus overturned in the temple remained intact when he did so. So the reality is you're not going to get me to say that those people were wrong. If you don't listen to them, what else can they do? But what I am saying is that after that happens, we can't keep coming back here, y'all. We can't keep coming back to the place where we just sit around and talk. We vent. We go outside. We overturn some tables, some cars, set things afire, set things ablaze, and then the same thing happens. We have to become tactical. That is, we've got to do the right things the right way. What does it mean to be tactical? To be tactical is we have to stop just sitting around praying for change. We've got to actually put our faith with our works. To be tactical now is that we've got to begin to look at our communities and start asking, are there civil review boards in our community that can review and hold police accountable before issues happen where they kill people in the street? Because if you study this story, you'll discover that this officer and many of these officers who are guilty of these things had reports on them, reports that were filed over and over and over again. If there is no civilian review board that we as Christians are part of, then they are able to get away with it over and over and over again. And please understand, it happens in a process. It is progressional, which means they start by pulling people over for no reason. They start by saying things to people they shouldn't say. They start by shoving and pushing, and then it ends up with their foot on our neck. It doesn't just go from 0 to 100. There is a history of progression. To be tactical is we need to begin to review these reports, to call these people to the carpet before it escalates to murder. To be tactical is for us to stop talking in our own areas as churches and our own different groups and come together as churches that have a large portion of marginalized, disenfranchised people and begin to say, we won't just give our vote to a particular person or party because that's how we've regularly voted. We need to vote based on them dealing with our issues. That's tactical. To be tactical is not simply to focus on the presidential election, but to focus, as I've said this before, on your local elections, because who your DA is, who your sheriff is, who your police chief is, or who your circuit judges are, that matters, because disproportionately, we're the ones who are suffering. So I understand we're tired, but we need to stop saying we're tired, and we need to turn that energy into not only being strategic, but being tactical. And secondly, I think we need to stop reacting all the time and become resolute. Please hear me. I am not saying that you need to let go of your emotions. Your emotions actually help you to process logically what you're going through. So I'm not suggesting, as some, in fact, I was on a panel just a couple of weeks ago, Pastors Roundtable, and there was a white brother on there, conservative, who was talking with us as we talked about these issues. And one of the things that he said, and I hear this all the time from our white brothers and sisters, don't get emotional. Don't get emotional. We need to be logical. That is a failed and flawed understanding of how we process the world around us. God gave us emotions for a reason. In fact, I would submit to you that if you surrender your emotions, your logic will be flawed. You cannot think straight without your emotions. Your emotions are part of the intellectual, logical, rational process. So no, do not surrender your feelings. Do not surrender your emotions. Do not ignore them. Rechannel them so that we can become resolute. We need to be resolute. What does that mean? Unwavering, unflinching amidst all of the pressure that is against us to be quiet, particularly as Christians, because we were all raised, all of these, regardless of your denomination. If you grew up in the West, if you grew up in North America, we were all raised on a Eurocentric version of Christianity that tells the marginalized it's okay to stay marginalized, that tells the oppressed it's okay to stay oppressed because one day Jesus will come back and you won't be oppressed anymore. That is totally different than the Bible, which shows us that Jesus, though he knew he would go to heaven and return and everything would be all right when he returned, still worked to heal people, to lift people out of their lower social class, to deal with delivering people from their demons, setting people free, not only from spiritual oppression, but from economic and class oppression. This is the model of Jesus. We have to be resolute. But might I say this, not only we, as those who are marginalized, those who are oppressed, our brothers and sisters who are Christians, who are not part of our community, need to also be resolute. Study any peaceful liberation movement. Study any peaceful civil rights movement, both here and around the world, and you will discover that it always takes the participation, collaboration, and the alliance of powerful people who are part of the power structure. So let me be clear. This is a call to my white brothers and sisters. You cannot simply stand around and say that you are not a racist. It is not enough for you to offer up prayers to God, but never lift your voice to be able to stand with us. And hear me, not just your voice, but your feet, your hands, your funds, your finances, to stop the spread of racism. It's not enough. It's nice that you can send a tweet out, but we don't need a tweet. We need you to stand with us. We need you to challenge your other white brothers and sisters who hold the levers to industry, who basically run the government, who make the rules and legislate the laws. We need you to join us if we are indeed brothers and sisters in Christ. Amen. So let me say this, and I'm taking my time to say this because I'm appealing to my brothers and sisters. Please understand, we need you. We need you. So to all my white brothers and sisters, pastors who have powerful platforms, who have huge spheres of influence, I'm calling on you. I call on those like Andy Stanley and Craig Groeschel and Steve Furtick, Matt Chandler, Rick Warren, Max Lucado, one of my favorite authors. I call on you. Every one of you have a huge and powerful platform. Your influence is huge. Presidents and world leaders listen to you. We need you to stand with us and to be resolute. I call on denominations that are largely white who have huge voting power and in fact helped this president to get into office. I call on the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, J.D. Greer. We need your powerful, influential voice to stand with us so that we are no longer killed in the streets. I call on Christian networks that often take our money but don't stand with us in our voice. I call on networks like 3ABN, who is largely funded and promoted by African Americans and African Caribbeans, but yet when things like this happen, nothing is said. There is absolute silence. I call on you to do something, to say something. I even call on my General Conference president, the leader of my denomination, Ted Wilson, who this man of God, I call on you, could we please say something and do something? Your silence is so loud. How is it that when gay marriage is passed, we make a statement? And how is it when Ebola is going around that we can make a statement about that? And even this pandemic, we say something, but our leaders are silent. Please hear me and please understand, we are not looking for white saviors.
Hallelujah.
I'm not calling you because we need you to save us. We don't need you to save us. We're not asking for you to be our white messiahs. What we're asking you to do is to put your Christianity to work, to risk some of the people who follow you to unfollow you because you love Jesus so much. You recognize our human dignity and humanity, and you're willing to stand up and say, this is wrong. We're not asking for another sermon. We're not asking for another tweet. We're asking for your resources to be put to work, to join with us. Hear me. We're not even asking for you to be our voice. We have our own voices.
Yes, we do.
We're simply asking you to unmute our voices because you are the ones who are friends with. You are the ones who play golf with. You are the ones who take vacations with. Those who are muting our voices. And you don't have to be a racist to understand that silence actually proliferates racism. So we don't need to be tired. We need to be tactical. And we don't need to simply react. We need to be resolute. And if we do those things together, not just us, but together, then we can see this thing change. Let me say this finally, and then I'm going to pray for you, and then we'll go to praise and worship. Because I couldn't let this day go by. I got a sermon to preach, but I couldn't let this day go by without addressing this. This is all in our hearts. And not just here, around the world. The world is watching. Let me say this to you. Please understand, I am not naive and neither are you. Racism is not going to be solved down here.
Amen.
I know that. I know that biblically, theologically, and prophetically. We are not going to cure the world of the virus of racism. For racism is like a virus. You cannot cure it. You can't stop it, just like you can't stop the flu. But one thing you can do is treat the symptoms of that which you cannot cure. We've got to address the symptoms of racism. We can't change the hearts of people, but we can sure enough try to stop the spread of this racism so that we can inoculate future generations against bias, prejudice, and privilege. We can do that. We can co-labor with God together. There's a time for everything. And the time now is to be resolute and to be tactical. I want to pray for you, and then we're going to go to praise and worship. Father,